All right, so let's dive into a topic that's been pretty hot lately, the energy transition. We've got a whole stack of articles about it, talking about the newly elected president and Elon Musk. And this whole changing energy landscape. If you're feeling even a little lost in all the opinions and policies, well, think of this as your cheat sheet. We're going to break it all down. Who's saying what and what it all means for the future of energy.
It's really interesting to watch these different ideologies clash.
Right.
On one hand, you've got people pushing for a fast switch to renewables, and then on the other, you've got this more cautious approach, the folks who want to stick with what we know.
Absolutely. And this isn't just some theory, it's shaping real policy, like the executive orders we've seen targeting electric vehicles.
Yeah, one of the first things the new president did was sign that Unleashing American Energy Order. Remember that? It took direct aim at all that funding for EVs. And the charging stations that they need.
It really feels like they're trying to slow down the EV revolution. And remember all that talk about getting rid of the EV mandate? That's interesting because there wasn't ever a federal mandate. It was really more about incentives and targets.
Yeah, that's a good point. It makes you wonder what the government's role should even be. Should they be setting big goals and offering incentives? Or should they just step back and let the market figure it out? The new president seems to be in the let the market decide camp. The argument is that getting rid of all the regulations will give people more choices, and that'll be better for the American auto industry in the end.
So it's kind of like that drill baby drill idea, but with a 21st century spin on it. I think it's interesting that they're using consumer choice as the main argument. When you think about cars, shouldn't we be thinking about other things too? Like, the environment.
That's a really important point. The president and the people who agree with him are saying this is about freedom. They're saying the previous administration was forcing EVs on everyone, even though there was no mandate. And that message is really powerful, especially in a culture that really values personal freedom.
I see what you mean. But let's get into some of the specifics about what the president has actually done. We're talking about big policy changes, right?
Definitely. One of the biggest things was that he got rid of that goal of having 50% electric vehicle sales by 2030. Now, it wasn't an actual law or anything, but it did send a strong message about where they wanted to go with transportation. By getting rid of it, the new administration is signaling that their priorities are very different.
And it wasn't just targets, right? They also went after the things that made buying an electric car more appealing.
Yeah, you're right. The president told the EPA to review and possibly roll back some of the incentives that were making EVs cheaper, things like tax credits and rebates. And to really solidify this shift, they also stopped all federal funding for building new charging stations.
So if we just zoom out for a minute, it looks like they're trying to slow down the growth of electric cars, which would then slow down the move to cleaner energy. That's a pretty big move, especially when you consider how many other countries are really pushing for decarbonization.
It is. And it makes things really interesting when you think about someone like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
He's basically become the face of electric vehicles.
Oh, for sure. Talk about a contrast. You have the president wanting to go back to traditional energy sources, and then you have Elon Musk, who's all about sustainable technology and a future running on renewables.
And Musk isn't just talking. He's putting his money where his mouth is, investing in companies like Tesla, which has really helped to make electric vehicles more mainstream.
And don't forget about all the stuff he's doing with solar energy, with Solar City, and even crazier ideas like the Hyperloop. It seems like all his projects have the same goal, to get us off fossil fuels.
Exactly. But here's where things get a little more complicated. Even though Musk is obviously a big force pushing for this energy transition, he doesn't seem to agree with that rip-off-the-Band-Aid approach that a lot of climate activists are pushing for.
Yeah, he said something about not needing to rush the transition.
He did. He actually said, if we reach sustainability in like 50 to 100 years, that's okay. That's kind of an interesting position. It puts him somewhere between the climate scientists who are saying this is urgent and the people like the president who are saying slow and steady.
So this isn't a black and white situation. There are all sorts of opinions about how we should move away from fossil fuels, and more importantly, how fast we should be doing it.
It's definitely not black and white, and that's what makes this whole conversation so interesting. It's not just about technology, it's about values and politics and the economy all mixed up together. It makes you think about what the impact of all this is going to be, not just on big companies, but on everyday people.
That's a really good point. What kind of ripple effects could we actually see from all these policy changes?
Well, one thing that seems pretty obvious is that the move to electric cars could slow down. If all those financial incentives go away and the emission standards get relaxed, then gas-powered cars start to look better, at least when you think about the cost.
That would be rough for companies like Tesla, wouldn't it? They've really gone all in on this electric future.
For sure, Tesla's become like the biggest name in electric vehicles, but they're not totally protected from changes in what people want to buy or what the government does. If fewer people are interested in electric cars, it's going to affect how much they grow and how profitable they are.
And it's not just the companies either. What about all those jobs and all the money people have invested that are tied to electric cars?
That's another big part of this. The president's policies could mean job losses in the EV sector, and investors might hesitate to put money into things like making batteries and charging infrastructure. Those changes could really affect the economy, especially in places that have been focusing on the green economy.
It sounds like a gamble the administration is betting that going back to fossil fuels will create more jobs and help the economy, but people who disagree are worried that it'll stifle innovation and the U.S. will fall behind in the global race for clean energy.
It is a gamble. And there are environmental things to think about, too. Rolling back those emission rules could lead to more air pollution and make climate change worse, which, as we said, is something the president and someone like Elon Musk really disagree on.
And don't forget about the possibility of lawsuits. States like California have their own goals for the climate, and their emission standards are stricter than the federal government's. They might not just stand by and watch these policies happen.
You're right. California has a waiver so they can set stricter emission standards, and they've shown that they're willing to fight to keep them tells. This could easily end up in court, which would make everything even more complicated.
It seems like we're headed for a time of uncertainty with a lot of questions that don't have answers yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say how all these changes will affect the energy transition over time. Will the U.S. be able to stay a leader in renewable energy? And what kind of role will people like Elon Musk play in shaping the future?
Speaking of Musk, his position in all of this is fascinating. On one hand, he's been very open about disagreeing with the president's policies, especially the ones about climate change. But then on the other hand, he's also shown he's willing to work with the administration on things like infrastructure and space exploration.
It's true. Musk has a very complicated relationship with the government. It seems like he understands that to do what he wants to do, whether that's moving to sustainable energy or colonizing Mars, he needs at least some help from the government. He's walking a fine line, trying to work with them while also standing up for his beliefs.
So it sounds like he's not afraid to play the political game, even if it means compromising sometimes.
It seems that way, and that leads to another really interesting question. Can someone like Musk, with all his drive and his ideas for the future, actually find a way to bridge the gap between these two sides in the energy debate?
That's a big question, and one we should definitely think about. We're talking about the future of energy, which is essentially the future of our planet. The stakes are really high.
And like we've been talking about, there are no easy solutions. It's a really complicated issue with lots of different opinions and possible outcomes, but I think understanding the main players, their reasons for doing what they do and what could happen because of their actions is a good place to start. It helps us make sense of this complicated situation and make smarter choices about the future we want to build.
I agree. We've looked at these contrasting views from the president's emphasis on traditional energy sources to Elon Musk's vision of a sustainable future. We've talked about what could happen because of the president's policies and the legal and environmental challenges. And it's clear that there's a lot more to come. This energy transition is constantly changing, and the decisions we make now will have effects for years to come.
That's a great point. It emphasizes that we're all a part of this story, whether we're driving electric cars, investing in renewable energy, or just talking about the kind of future we want.
Exactly. And that brings us to something really important. This isn't something we just watch from a distance. Each of us has a part to play in shaping the energy landscape of the future.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I think that's where it starts to feel like we can actually do something. Even small actions can have a big impact. It starts with being aware and understanding the details of this transition and the different points of view.
So it's more than just switching to energy-efficient light bulbs, though. That's a great start.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just changing light bulbs. It's about making smart choices about what we buy, supporting businesses that are doing things the right way, and speaking up for policies that help us move to a cleaner, more sustainable future.
You're right, it's about putting our money where our mouth is. But how much of a difference can we really make as just one person? It all feels so massive.
I get what you mean, but I really do believe that the things we do individually can make a big change. It might start with simple things like walking or riding a bike instead of driving when you can, or choosing renewable energy for your home.
Okay, those are good everyday examples. But what about on a bigger scale? How can we affect policy and actually change the direction of the energy transition?
One thing we have is Our voice, we can get in touch with the people we elected, let them know what matters to us, and push them to support policies that are good for clean energy and sustainability. We can also help out organizations that are already doing the hard work, whether that's by giving them money or volunteering our time.
So it's about being informed voters, speaking up, and helping the groups who are already fighting for change that makes me feel better. It doesn't feel so much like an impossible fight anymore.
Exactly. And don't forget about how much power we have as consumers when we buy from companies that are committed to sustainability. We're sending a message that we care about responsible practices.
You're right. Every dollar we spend is a vote for the kind of world we want, and those votes add up.
They really do. Remember, change doesn't usually happen just from the top down. It usually starts with people wanting something better and then going out and doing something about it.
It's kind of like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. We might not all be Elon Musk, with the money to start electric car companies or fund huge solar projects, but we can all contribute in our own way.
That's it. And those individual choices, when you multiply that by millions of people, that's where the real power to change things comes from.
This has been such a great conversation. We started with clashing ideas and moved on to actual policy changes. We talked about how it could affect industries and jobs and the power we have as individuals. It's a lot to take in, but in a good way.
It really shows how complicated and nuanced this whole energy transition is. It's not just about turning off a light switch. It's a constantly moving process that's going to take careful thought collaboration and some really hard choices along the way.
And for our listeners who now have a much better understanding of all of this, I think we should leave them with a question to think about, knowing what we've discussed, about all the different ways we can approach the energy transition from the president's focus on traditional sources to Elon Musk's vision of a sustainable future. What do you think will be the biggest influences in shaping the energy landscape in the future? What role do you want to play in this change?
Those are great questions, and I think the answers will become clearer over time. It's a journey we're all on, and the choices we make today are going to create the world of tomorrow.
Well said. That wraps up our deep dive into the energy transition. We hope you found it insightful and that it's given you some things to think about. Join us next time when we'll completely change gears and explore a really interesting topic that might surprise you, the history of chewing gum. You won't want to miss it.